Hey everybody! So today we're going to continue on talking about the Galactic Center, specifically about the Supergalactic Center. In the videos that I did last week, I talked about my own personal experiences with Venus and Uranus conjunct the GC, and I talked about my own personal experience with Chiron conjunct the Anti-Center. So today I'm going to continue on with this, talking about my own personal experience with the South Node conjunct the Supergalactic Center. And if I have time, or I might make another video about this, not sure, I'll talk about the North Node, or how I think this manifests, the North Node conjunct whatever opposes the Supergalactic Center. And I'm doing this because it's not that I just want to sit here and talk about myself. Though there is something very, I will be honest, there is something cathartic about this, about doing this. Because I don't really, I read so many other people's charts. I don't sit and fuck with my own that much. So there is something, or even really sit and fucking talk about myself that much. So there is something cathartic about saying this stuff out loud. But I'm doing this because there are, in total, there have been like 150 people that have reached out over the course of almost a year and a half with the GC research, whether that was doing the questionnaire or just reaching out, via email to share their experience with planets conjunct the GC, the Anti-Center, the Supergalactic Center, or whatever opposes the Supergalactic Center. And I want to start talking about this. I mean, while I can certainly convey what people have said to you, I want to give people the opportunity to do it themselves, to share their own experience with this kind of stuff. Now, obviously, I understand if somebody doesn't want to be filmed, doesn't want to be asked questions, I get it. I can convey stuff to you all that they have to say if they give me clearance to do so. But I do want to give people the opportunity to do this if they want to. You would essentially be coming on here. We'd film ahead of time. I would ask you some questions. You can get as deep and soul bearing as you want, or you can stay as cut and dry. I'm really very easygoing. Whatever you want to do, I'll kind of roll with it. But I'd like to start doing this, and there have been a couple people that have said they want to do this already. So I guess in the next week or two, we'll probably start doing stuff like that. But if you'd like to do this, let me know. My email is saturnseason@gmail.com. I will put it in the description box below. So reach out if you're interested in doing this. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start. This is what my chart looks like. Here is the Galactic Center. You can see that Venus and Uranus are conjuncted very closely. Pallas and the Sun Moon midpoint are at 23 degrees Sagittarius. They are not pulled, but they're right there too. Saturn is there at 21 degrees. My ascendant is even close at roughly 16 degrees. Neptune is even close at 6 degrees Capricorn. So there's a whole bunch of shit right there. On the opposite end of the axis, there is Chiron conjunct the Galactic Anti-Center. The Anti-Center you can't pull on astro.com, but just imagine that it would be there. Up here is my South Node. My true South Node is at 0 Libra. My mean South Node is at 0... my mean South Node is at 29 Virgo. And my midheaven is right there too, conjunct Messier 87, which is the Supergalactic Center. That is what you will need to pull the Supergalactic Center in your chart. And then on the opposite end of the axis, there is the IC, the true node at 0 Aries, and the mean node at 29 Pisces, conjunct whatever opposes the Supergalactic Center. But you can't pull that in the chart either. Okay, so the Supergalactic Center, it is the center of a meta-cluster of galaxies that our galaxy is a part of. I believe, I might pronounce this wrong, I think it's called Laniakea supercluster of galaxies. So it is the center of that. So while the GC, or Galactic Center, is the center of our galaxy, the Supergalactic Center is the center of this cluster of this other cluster of galaxies that we are a part of. So while the GC is not exactly localized in the way that we tend to think of local, it is local to this galaxy, whereas the Supergalactic Center is way further out. It's not localized like that. And it's a massive black hole. It's even bigger than the GC. So planets or points or asteroids or whatever that happen to be conjunct the Supergalactic Center are going to be, they're going to be pulled, spaghettified, pulled this way, this way, this way, all kinds of ways, which is going to make anything there mutated, energized, or electrified, transformed, perhaps even distorted, those kinds of things. But since we are talking about the Supergalactic Center, it does seem like it could even happen in a bigger way than the Galactic Center. Now, what I'm about to say, this is my personal experience with the South Node conjunct the Supergalactic Center. So it may, or, you know, what I'm about to say may not fit for you. It probably won't, unless you're talking about the South Node there too. But, just, yeah, for research, I think it's an interesting, I should talk about this. So I have seen it get harped on a lot, relationships, specifically since the Supergalactic Center is in Libra. Relationships tend to get harped on a lot for stuff about the Supergalactic Center. That is fair. I'm not saying that's unfair, but I actually feel like balance is a bigger deal. From my personal experience anyway, balance is a big one. Balance and diplomacy and harmony. I know that, like, because we're talking about my South Node, this is where I'm coming from. This is how I am wired, naturally wired in this lifetime. From a previous lifetime lens, it's where I'm coming from. So it's comfortable. Not always good, but it's comfortable. And I am very wired to be diplomatic. I am very wired to be harmonious. I am very wired to balance and be balancing. This is kind of how I function my entire life. I mean, I think about, like, okay, within my family, I have kind of, at different points in my life, played the role of a go-between. Nobody was actually asking me to do this. Well, they were, but they weren't at the same time. Like, they didn't verbally say, well, no, I guess sometimes they did, would verbally say, you need to tell so-and-so this, or whatever, and then that person would be like, well, you need to go back and tell so-and-so this. This did actually happen from time to time, where it was, like, in your face like that, but sometimes it's like people just, because I am naturally good, I am naturally very diplomatic, people sense this about me, and they kind of use me in this way, and I allow myself to be used in this way. Not so much now, not so much at this point in my life, but I did in the past, because it was natural for me to function this way. So that's kind of been an issue for me. And I really started noticing this, when, like, this happens within my own family, but it also, I noticed it when it started happening with my ex-husband's family. There are certain, well, not all of them, but some of those people are fucking ridiculous, as it is. But I started noticing this was a thing when some of the more ridiculous people would come to me and be like, would ask me questions about my ex-husband and what he was doing, or how he was doing, or whatever. And I'm thinking, why the fuck aren't you asking him? Well, he doesn't ever say anything. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, he's not the greatest communicator. He would even tell you that. So I'm thinking to myself, why are you asking me? He doesn't talk to me either. You know? So, but it's like, why are you coming to me with this? Go to the source. I'm not the source. And it really was driven home for me with them that this was a thing, that this wasn't just something that happened in my own family. It's something that was happening in other families too, you know, in other things too. And then I thought back and I was like, well, fuck me. I've played this role in friendships, in all kinds of shit, you know? And while this is a very Libra South Node-y kind of thing as it is, it does feel like it has always been such a major part of my makeup, if you will, the diplomacy, the balancing, the trying to be harmonious. That and it does feel like it has to do with the with the South Node being conjunct to the Supergalactic Center. Like this ends up sucking me into this black hole of playing this role of diplomat or of balancer or of trying to keep the peace, keep things on an even keel. You know what I mean? And I bring up my mean node at 29 Virgo because while I resonate most with the Libra South Node, Virgo South Nodes can carry guilt about things that isn't necessary. Most of the time it is not necessary. And that part really does resonate. That part of the Virgo South Node does resonate for me. The feeling of like, if I can't, in the past anyway, if I can't balance, or if I can't balance or play diplomat for these different people, I end up feeling guilty about it. And then what happens, because the Supergalactic Center does warp things, does distort things, does twist things, what happens is the people who are coming to me to play diplomat end up getting pissed off at me because of something that doesn't even have to do with me. And they end up taking it out on me. And this has happened my whole fucking life. And it's been through working with the Supergalactic Center that I'm kind of like, okay, so this is probably why. This is probably why this happens. And why it happens in why it ends up being so fucked, you know? Why it ends up being such a fucked up thing in the long run. So I've kind of stopped. I've tried to really watch that, you know, like like when I feel like that's going on, or like it could be going on, I kind of shut it down. Like I don't want to sit and talk about other people. I don't want, you know what I mean? Like I kind of just shut it down. Try to shut it down early on. Or as early on as I can, so that's not as much of an issue. It'll probably always be an issue to a certain extent. But yeah, I do try to shut it down earlier, so that, because I don't want it, because that, you know, that's the other thing, because it does distort things. You know, I may think that, or in the past I may have thought I was doing some good thing by playing diplomat, but I'm really not. I'm you know, I really wasn't. It wasn't helping myself. It wasn't helping those people. They need to talk to one another. That kind of thing. Another thing that I will bring into play here, relationships. Because I am, and I have been told I am balancing, and like I am balancing for people. I end up in the past relationships of all varieties, I have found that the people that tend to want to be in close relationships with me are not very balanced, and they're almost looking, they don't say this outright, but it's almost like they're looking for somebody to balance them. And because they know that I'm good at this, I'm a mark for this, or that's what it feels like, a mark. So I have to be aware of that too. And I do know that the more that I have realized this goes on, the more I have kind of been able to attract people into my life, relationships of all varieties, that the person, even if the person isn't totally balanced, like we're all not totally balanced, right? But the person isn't like looking to me to balance them. It's more, you know, it's kind of like you don't have to take on that role. And mind you, none of this is totally said out loud. It's just kind of as an undercurrent. But the people are more willing to try to balance themselves and fix their own shit than they're necessarily looking for somebody to help them do this or to do this for them. Because that really was a massive issue before in my life. It really was. And it didn't do me any fucking good. Maybe it was great for the other person. I don't even know if it was really good for the other person. Maybe it felt better for them than it did for me. But, you know, ultimately we have to balance ourselves.
We can't be looking consciously or unconsciously for somebody else to do this for us, or to be a balance for us. That just that's like a setup for failure, really. So I'm gonna get going though, because this got kind of long. I'm gonna talk about the other stuff in another video that I will do after this. But if you want to be a part of the research, it is still going on. It will be going on for a long time, I'm sure. You can reach out to me. My email is saturnseason@gmail.com. Again, I'll put it below. And if you want to talk about this kind of stuff, being filmed, talking about it, let me know. All right, I will see you all later.